Of Thal is there talking about the deal and what it means both for India as well as for France. But, you've written a piece today talking about how there are several concerns that remain with regards to the Rafale deal. And one of your key concerns is the cost of acquisition. You also concede then that in comparison to the MMRCA deal, we do now have much more on the table. But does the cost of acquisition continue to be your primary concern with the Rafale deal?
Yes, Shereen, the 7.8 billion euro cost of acquisition, the total cost of acquisition of this deal is actually divided into two components. One is the actual cost of the aircraft, the 36 Rafale fighters that are being bought, and that is just 3.3 billion euro. There's another 4.5 billion euro that covers training, that covers spare parts, that covers performance-based logistics, which is the guarantee by Dassault and Thales that 75% of the aircraft will be serviceable at all times. Then it covers the cost of the weaponry that you spoke about a short while ago. So I mean, it's a bit skewed, just 3.3 billion euro for the aircraft and 4.5 billion euro for all of that. It gives the impression that perhaps with so much of effort going into and so much of expense going into setting up the infrastructure for the aircraft, paradoxically, perhaps we should have bought more aircraft to benefit from all that infrastructure. But there will be only 36 Rafales. That's just 2 squadrons in Air Force parlance. And for that, we would have paid a pretty heavy price for that. Everybody believes that it's a badly needed aircraft, that the Air Force squadron numbers are depleting. They need to be filled up, but still, the price is certainly stiff.
The price is certainly stiff, but where does this leave the Air Force and its needs, Ajay? Because as you pointed out, that this is going to add about 2 squadrons to the Indian Air Force, and that still perhaps falls short of what the Indian Air Force requires at this point in time. We do have the option of buying more Rafales, but perhaps, we're going to be looking at a whole bunch of other aircraft on the table as well. What does that then do also to the costs as far as the Air Force is concerned to have to deal with, 6 or 7 different kinds of fighter aircraft?
That's an absolutely valid point you're making. This is going to be the 7th, I beg your pardon, the 7th kind of different fighter that the Indian Air Force will be flying. And just managing the logistics for all these different aircraft at different bases, it sort of binds everybody into a narrow pocket of operation. You can't just swing around aircraft from one base to the other the way you would like to. So, I mean, it really means that this business of Air Force flexibility is impaired. But more importantly, the Air Force squadron numbers have come down to now between 33 and 34. That's against 42 squadrons that are assessed to be required against a collusive threat from Pakistan and China. You're about 9 squadrons already short, and there's going to be another 11 squadrons of MiG-21s and MiG-27s retiring in the next decade. So, to fill this gap, we've basically arranged for 2 squadrons of Rafales, which is wholly inadequate. I was appalled to discover today that they don't even have an options contract for ordering more at the same price. So essentially, if we go in for more Rafales, we would have to renegotiate.
Is that right,
afresh,
Ajay? Because our understanding was... Is that right? Because our understanding was that there is an options clause.
No, that you can conclusively rule out. I have it from authentic Defense Ministry sources. There is no options clause with this deal. Apparently, the French were under the impression that they were giving this deal at such a bargain basement price that they could not afford to give another squadron at the same thing. They said, if you want another squadron, you'll just have to renegotiate it afresh.
Okay, my final question to you, Ajay. There's been a lot of talk around what this means as far as Make in India is concerned. Thales was just on the channel talking about, the possibility of transfer of technology, of working with existing joint venture partners like Samtel and BEL. From at least a Make in India ecosystem perspective, what will this deal bring to the table?
Well, it's a 50% offset liability. For the first time in any deal that has been concluded, it's not 30% as had been said earlier on the channel. It's a 50% offset liability. So Thales and Dassault, the two main vendors, are liable to source about 29,000 crore rupees worth of equipment from India. The contract specifies that 74% of the offset liability has to be discharged through manufacturers in India. There's also a technology component of 6% of the offset liability. So for sure, Indian defense industry will benefit from this. There will be a certain amount of sourcing that is incumbent upon Dassault and Thales. But one has to always weigh this against the fact that had one not actually gone in for this purchase of the Rafale, that money would have been able to be sort of plowed into the Indian industry, into R&D centers, into high-tech companies that are doing really sort of cutting-edge work. So it's a balance over here. But I think there's one more point that is important to be noted over here. The Indian Air Force is going to have to pay 9,000 crore rupees this year as the advance for the Rafale. And next year, that payment is going to go up to 14,500 crore rupees. Where is this money coming from? It's going to be a hit to the fiscal this year, and it's going to be an even bigger hit to the fiscal next year. The Air Force is going to have to get a lot more money to cater for this expensive purchase, and the government is going to have to manage that somehow.
Well, that is going to be the Finance Ministry's problem. The Defense Ministry has done its bit, but Ajai Shukla, it's always a pleasure speaking with you. Thanks very much for joining us here on India Business Hour tonight. Defense expert Ajai Shukla there on the implications and importance of the Rafale fighter jet deal. Now,